The only thing I don't have at the moment is the ability to start the closed captions for everyone.
Okay, I can go ahead and do that.
Thank you very much. Um, Haha, Kim, I see you talking about Sandman. I just started that last night and I am hooked. I mean, I like the author, I like the story anyway, but like, wow, I'm impressed by that.
I was asking everybody what they were obsessed with right now with the new seasons coming out.
So I'm curious, while we get ramped up and get going, I would love to know because it's pertinent to the discussion, and when people ask me questions later on in this information session, it helps to kind of have some reference about what you all are doing right now for work. So if you don't mind sharing and posting in the chat what are you currently doing for either a job or if you're stay-at-home parent or a caregiver for someone, like that's important too. That's just as much of a job as anything else. So I would love to know what you all are working on right now, or if you're a freelancer and you're working on a project, tell us about your project. So I'm gonna let you all post that while I get our slide deck up.
And I'm going to stay on mute just so it doesn't mess anything up, but I did change you to being the host, so you should have all of the abilities now.
Perfect. Okay.
Librarian studying UX. I like that.
Ooh, that's great. Library science. Let me tell you, information architecture is such a big thing.
I
Uh,
have an anthropology background and that's the reason why I want to get into more UX stuff.
yep, I love those library science people. They come in and know how to organize and make findable interfaces and navigation. All right, auto sales. Every session we get someone who is in sales. Sales is such a great skill set. The ability to pitch your designs, to convince stakeholders, to adopt your research findings, to present your proposals. I did sales for a while. I sold $30,000 mattresses for Bloomingdale's for a couple of years, and I mean, you need those skills as a designer on a product team. Awesome. Architecture. Mm, love architecture. Oh, dietitian. Yeah, we have a dietitian right now in one of our product design cohorts. Property manager, skills, user support, auditor, graphic design. Yeah, drafter and industrial design, fintech startups, electrical engineer. I love to see all of the range of interesting careers that people are currently working on because what excites me so much about our product design field is the skills that you have built in your current career. Even if you don't like your job or your career right now, those skills that you use to be successful in your career are so important as a designer. I like to say that nothing is wasted when you come over to product design because all those skills are really transferable. Okay, that's my little spiel that I like to give about going into product design. And we'll talk more about it. If you want to ask me specific questions about how your skills will apply, like I can give you concrete examples. So you can challenge me on that if you want to, and we can talk about it. All right, let me share my screen. Okay, well, again, apologize for getting started just a little bit late here, but I promise it's going to be worth your time and we're going to get all of your questions answered. As we move through the presentation, please go ahead and drop your questions in the Q&A. So if you look down at the bottom, you should see a little Q&A with a messaging icon. Just click on there Ask your question as we go through. Don't wait until the end. Occasionally, I may stop to look at the question or address it live. Others, I may skip and wait until the end. Some of them, Corey may jump in and answer in the chat. Again, this is an informal time that we're going to spend together. So feel free to ask anything you want. Nothing's off the table. And I just love talking about product design and about our program. So who are we in this program? Where do we come from? What do we do? Well, I lead the curriculum team. So I'm the director of product design here at Flatiron. And I work with Dr. D. Cunningham, Anwar, Bonnie, and Sienna. And we create all of the labs, the readings, the teachings, the lectures, the projects. We speak to startups and to hiring managers, and we create the projects that you're going to be working on in our program. So we have a full-time dedicated team of experts who are crafting and creating our curriculum and always updating with the newest, most important content and skill sets that you need to be successful in product design. So we're a dedicated team of experts that have a combined 35 years in the industry and have worked for companies like Amazon, Meta, Centro, and Pinterest. I love to brag on our instructors. We have such an incredible team of instructors who are not only expert product designers, they are also just lovely, lovely people. They're some of the most caring, passionate people and get rave reviews from our students about working with these different instructors. So I always just like to give a shout out and say how proud I am of our program and instructors. All of our instructors are full-time at Flatiron. They have all worked in the industry and have teaching experience. So if you're interested in product design, what kind of jobs can you expect to be working in? Well, I refer you to this really interesting article about the top 7 or 8 jobs over the next 10 years. It's by HR Forecast. And all of these jobs, we're seeing anywhere from an 8% to a 20% increase in salary just over the next 5 years. And that's cloud computing, cybersecurity, AI, big data, VR, AR, blockchain, video production, and user experience. Now, the interesting thing to me about product design is all of the other job sectors like cloud, cyber, AI, VR, blockchain, video, all the different sectors also use product designers. We are spread across all different sectors, domains, and industries. So we kind of have a leg up, right? I mean, us and software engineers, there's more demand than there is supply right now for these types of jobs. And every trend and forecast shows that they're going to be going up. Now, product designers tend to really work on creativity, persuasion, collaboration, emotional intelligence, and adaptability. It takes those types of skills to be successful, not only in a program like ours, but on a product design team at a company. Now, the good thing about it is that according to LinkedIn Learning, those are the top 5 soft skills that hiring managers are now screening for and are most interested in trying to cultivate on their teams. Creativity, persuasion, collaboration, adaptability, and emotional intelligence. Going through a program like this, you're going to be working all of those muscles and building all of those skills. Yes, we're going to teach you the software. We're going to teach you how to do visual composition, do credible research. We'll teach you the methods, but there are soft skills, or what I like to call foundational skills, that are equally important in success, not only for the program, but in the design industry. So our program in particular places a lot of weight on these foundational skills. In terms of the hard skills, according to the same article in LinkedIn Learning, UX design is number 5 in the most desirable top 10 hard skills, along with things like analytical reasoning, which you're going to be using a lot in the design program. According to the World Economic Forum in the Future of Jobs report, they say that the top skills rising in prominence are critical thinking and analysis, problem solving, skills in self-management like active learning, resilience, stress tolerance, and flexibility. And I'll tell all of you something right now. The fact that you're here tonight already shows that you have some of that problem solving, some of that self-management. You're ready, getting ready for active learning, right? You already are showing some of the traits that are really, really important according to this Future of Jobs report. In terms of resilience, stress tolerance, and flexibility, if you're doing auto sales, if you're doing femtech, if you're doing some of these jobs, I am sure that stress tolerance, resilience, and flexibility are critical and core to being successful in those jobs. So take what skills you've already started growing and learning, and let's apply them to an industry like product design. Well, all that's like nice to know, but who's actually hiring? Who's paying for these different job positions in product design? Just a cursory glance at Glassdoor will show you that some of the most recognizable and top companies are hiring right now. And some of these companies our instructors have worked for. Many of these companies, our alumni have gone on to become core parts of their product design and technology teams. We just placed someone at Amazon, in fact. Capital One, we've been speaking with an alumni at Capital One about coming back to be a coach and a mentor in our program. So we have this really amazing network and community of alumni and product designers that are already out there in many of these companies. But I encourage you so much, like, do some research after this program. Don't take my word for it, as they say, and go and look at what these different roles are asking for and what the salary ranges for the roles are. It's really interesting. You should be doing that research if you want to come into a program like this. So what does the product designer do? What is the job of product designer? It's really 3 or 4 critical elements. If you think about a Venn diagram, okay, you have an overlap of 4 different circles. The first one is going to be research. Good product designers know that you need to do credible research methods and figure out what that research means and present your research findings in a persuasive manner and use that data to inform your design decisions. So things like user interviews, being able to write good surveys and send them out and then analyze the results of those surveys. Doing usability studies, or what we call evaluative research, on your designs or on your team's designs to decide whether or not you have done what the user needs and what the user expects. Creating prototypes in software like Figma or Sketch or Adobe XD or Webflow. Now, the user experience part of it is interpreting what all of that research tells you and then mapping out the user experience using like something that you see here on the right called a user journey map. That journey map plots all of the data that you get from customers and helps you and your team decide what are the opportunity themes or opportunity areas to solve problems, right? So it's a bit of strategy. Pardon me. You'll also be creating flows and diagrams of the optimal path that the user wants to take through your product, and then designing those paths using wireframes and prototyping. And then visual design. The third circle in that Venn diagram is user interface design. So taking your wireframes and your prototypes that you have evaluated and tested with users, and then creating beautiful, aesthetically pleasing user interface components. Doing things like animation design, creating typography and color within design systems, working on brand, voice, and tone. All right, all of these things are like the final polish that you're going to be working on in product design and delivering that in production to customers. We also really want you to understand how to work with software engineers, with data scientists, with product managers, right? And a great thing about Flatiron is that we have all those programs. We have software engineering, cybersecurity, and data science in addition to product design. And so you'll get the chance to interface and interact with other Flatiron School students as you build your projects. The fourth circle in that Venn diagram is product strategy. Okay, so it was research, user experience, UI design, and then product strategy. Now, product strategy is a lot about talking to people in a company and bringing them together into the same room and saying, here's the data, here's the research, here's what we found, here's what we tested. Now, how can we identify the best opportunity to compete in a market? Okay, so you might be trying to help position your product or your business or your organization in a particular product market. So what are the interesting opportunities to differentiate your product from others out there in the market that may do similar things? When you have 1,000 users all saying that they want different things, how do you decide what to build first or what to design first? We teach you many different frameworks, jobs to be done, lean UX, agile methodologies. We teach you how to do something we call prioritization. You have to have a way to make decisions when you could go this way, you could go that way, or maybe this way. So how do you decide what to do next? That's prioritization techniques, and that is product strategy. So those four things come together: research, UX, UI, and product strategy. And those complete the picture of what a product designer does. Now, caveat, it is not likely that you're going to be doing all of those things all of the time. Many of you are probably thinking, well, I only want to do research. I only want to do UI. I only want to do UX. Well, the good news is we do have a specialization track in the final phase of our program that allows you to highlight the particular skills that you are most passionate about. So all students get the same baseline curriculum, but then we have a project and a specialization track that allows you to choose research, UX, or UI so that you can highlight at least one full-length case study in your portfolio that shows your particular skill set in either research, UX, or UI. I always like to say that all four of these, research, UX, UI, and product strategy, are the rising tide that lift all boats. Because even if you are a pure UX designer, even if you are a pure researcher, learning enough about the other pieces of the puzzle will make you a better and more competitive designer in the market. You will be a more hireable designer because you know enough of the other skills to improve the one that you most want to work at. So none of it is wasted. All of it relates and helps you be better at what you want to do. Another simple way to say it is that product designers, they work across all phases of product development. That's why product designers are so valuable, because they can come into a project before it starts, at the beginning, in the middle, at the end, or to support a legacy product, or maybe help sunset a product to transition your best client over to a brand new product, version 2.0, right? Product designers can come in at all the different phases, early exploration, final execution, and beyond to support. So what does our product design program look like? Well, you can start off today by going through about 40 hours of prep work. So if you go onto our website, flatironschool.com/product design, I believe, you can sign up for the prep course and start going through just the fundamentals of UX, UI, and research. This is really just giving you the broad overview of the terminology, the methods, the concepts, so that when you're ready and you apply to the program, you can hit day one, hit the ground running, right? Nothing's going to be holding you back from really understanding everything that the instructor is telling you and that you're reading and that you are working on for labs and assessments. So we have a good bit of prep work that we want you to establish a great baseline so that you feel really comfortable on day one in our program. Then you move into Process UX. That's 105 hours of student interaction time. What I mean by that is it's a combination of reading, live lectures if you're considering the live program, or recorded lectures if you're in the part-time program. You get daily labs to work on that take anywhere from 1.5 to 3 hours. You also get quizzes and assessments. You get critique groups, pod-based learning opportunities, guest lectures, right? All of that contributes to the total 105 hours of student work time. So it's roughly 3 weeks if you're in the live program. And you were hitting it really hard with research methodology and UX methods. Following that, we get into UI design, Process UI, another 105 hours or 3 weeks if you're in the live program, of visual composition and UI patterns, interaction design, animation, all that fun stuff. Once you have hit 6 weeks of UX and UI, then we're moving on into Studio. We have 2 different studios. Each of them are 105 hours of student interaction time. In Studio 1, you start learning about design for the web. You do learn a little bit of HTML and CSS so that you can better work with software engineers when you're designing, when you're doing web design. And then we teach you the difference between designing for Apple devices or Android devices or Microsoft devices. So how do you design applications on these different platforms? Studio 2, you're working on a big project that goes across all 3 weeks. The intensity of the studios do sort of ramp up once you get into Studio 2, because at that point you are operating more like a full-time product designer. That is when you can start applying those concepts with product strategy, right? Now that you know the methods and the concepts behind UX, UI, and research, then you can start thinking strategically like a product designer. Who's the best target audience to use for this product? Right? What features are they going to want more than feature A or feature B? We also talk about information design. For those of you who love data visualization or dashboards and things like that, that is the week when we get into information design. We also have information architecture. I didn't put it in the slide here, but that's, I believe, in Studio 1. So for you library science people, bring those skills because we've got a week on information architecture. That final phase of 105 hours, it's phase 5, is your specialization phase. That is when you're getting to choose research, UX, or UI, and the project that we have, again, depends on when you sign up. The projects change out because we always like to keep them fresh. Our projects, we go to startups, we go to hiring managers, and we ask them what types of projects they have going on. And then we use those as inspiration and we collaborate with those hiring managers and startups to create project briefs for you in the studio phases and in the specialization phase. So for instance, right now, there's a startup that's creating a product that teaches children how to use money wisely and how to save and the value of a bank account, right? All those concepts. And the startup approached us and said, we would really love some help doing some research and coming up with ideas for how we can launch this course online. Right? So we were able to take that project and create a really unique track where the students can choose to do UX, UI, or research. And they hit that for 3 weeks and then end up presenting that project to a group of stakeholders for their portfolio. Now, it's important to know that once you graduate in 15 weeks, graduation is really only the beginning, okay? You were working on getting that portfolio up. You're getting full-time support from instructors, from our career services, from your mentor and coach. And we're helping you structure that portfolio, get your case studies up and ready to go, get them polished. You start practicing technical interviews. You go through a tech prep curriculum course and a career prep curriculum course. In the meantime, you're going to be meeting with and doing one-on-one coaching getting feedback on things like your resume, networking opportunities. We will set you up with different opportunities for that. And you'll even be able to do practice interviews with your coach. We're also going to help you understand if you get an offer, is it a credible offer? Is it a good offer? Can you ask for more? How do you negotiate, right? So we help you build those skills as well. You get 180 days of that personalized career coaching, which is really, really phenomenal. So what is the day of a product designer student at Flatiron like? This is the pretty typical template that we follow, although certain weeks and certain days certainly do vary. Again, this is really for the live program. If it's the part-time program, the schedule is going to be set by you. There are check-in times that you'll need to do with your instructor, and you will get one-on-one coaching and mentorship that way. But for the part-time program, you can actually look on our website and see the breakdown of what you get through that. But in the live program, you have a morning stand where you meet online, or if you're in New York, we have an in-person that we just launched. You're going to meet with your whole team, all of your peers and your instructor, and you set your goals for the day, as well as discuss any blockers that you might have to your learning experience. Once that's finished, you moved into a time of guided instruction. No boring 2-hour lectures, okay? We do guided instruction in a really interactive way. That means you're going to be in the Figma files with the instructors. You're going to be doing workshops, demos, and learning hands-on. Yes, we are going to teach you theory and concepts, right? So there is a certain amount of just, knowledge that we need to give you, but we really try to weigh heavily on interactive learning, right? So you're not just sitting there being talked at. It's something that's really important to us, and you learn better that way anyway. And then you break for lunch, which you may do independently, or we open up channels for Zoom calls where you can watch a seminar together to learn. Sometimes you'll do fun, share times and games and things like that for lunchtime. The afternoons are usually reserved for lab time. Labs are a mix of pod-based learning and independent learning. So you'll be practicing more of what you learned in the guided instruction time in the morning. Labs can take anywhere from 1.5 to 3 hours to complete. Some of them you'll be doing with a pod of other people to complete the project. Others you do on your own. You'll also be working on project work, especially in the later phases, Studio 1 and Studio 2, and the capstone phase. Right? This is when you'll need to be working on those projects like an independent full-time product designer, right? You will still have your instructor, you'll have teams that will help keep things on the rails for you, but we do have project work that you work on in the later phases. And then there's a certain amount of reading that has to take place throughout the week. And at the end of the day, sometimes you do a recap or QA. So if you have questions about what's coming up next week, or blockers or things that you need to discuss, then we have kind of what we call a cool down or a stand down at the end of the day, which is kind of the mirror of the morning stand, instead an evening stand down. The software that you're going to be using is primarily Figma. Like I said, we do all of our lectures, our labs, instruction time, assessments, presentations. Most of it is all in Figma. It is, by and large, the tool of choice for the design industry at the moment. But the good news is, if you're learning Figma really well, at the same time, you're learning the fundamentals of Sketch and Adobe XD. So those are the other two design tools that we tend to see in the design industry. Figma is certainly the top of the pack, the leader of the pack of design software, so that's why we use it. But there's a lot of overlap between Adobe XD and Sketch, so you're not wasting the time learning Figma because it's so transferable from tool to tool. There's so many similarities. We do some light learning in Webflow as well to help scaffold the web design the web design module. So when you're learning HTML and CSS, you're also learning a really great tool called Webflow that can help you build production level websites. And you may want to build your portfolio, for instance, in Webflow. So it'd be great to learn how to do that. Our learning management system is all done by Canvas. We work in a virtual whiteboard sometimes called Miro. Sometimes we use FigJam. which is a different version of it. And then Replit is also what we use to teach HTML and CSS. So what you're seeing are some live snapshots that I took of a class a couple of weeks ago. So this is our Amazon cohort. This is Amazon employees that are going through our program to be trained in product design. And you can see a perfect example of what a class looks like. You see all those names and cursors in there in the very middle. That's a live snapshot of working in Figma together. They're working on typography. So in the top left of the corner, you can see the instructor's example. And then everyone else is working independently on their work. So we have a principle in our program called work with the garage door up. Right? And what that means is you can't really go and kind of hide behind in your own design file. We want to pull you in and we want you to work with everyone else, learn out in the open. This is the way to be successful in 15 weeks of product design program, is to learn in the open. Get out there, make mistakes, and figure it out with your peers. And this is what that looks like, and this is the way to success. This is what we have found works best. If you're in person in New York, you're going to be working on real whiteboards instead of virtual whiteboards. You'll be using real sticky notes instead of virtual sticky notes, and working in person with your peers. So for more information on that, you can look on the Flatiron website to find out when the next launch for the New York City cohort is. Okay, a couple more slides to get through. I wanted to just show you quickly an overview of all the different modules. So for those of you who want to know, well, do you teach X, Y, or Z? If it's not on this, on the next couple of slides, contact us and ask. It may just be that we didn't put it on here, or we didn't list that particular methodology. So these are kind of the broad overview of all the different skills and methodologies that we teach. We put a big emphasis, by the way, on ethical design. It's actually the first week that you spend at Flatiron is learning about ethical design practices, inclusive design, accessibility design practices, and digital well-being. Okay, these are really important to first to just get through the program. It's in a successful and healthy manner, but to sustain your career in this industry, right? As technology has gotten more and more complex and overwhelming, right? It's more and more important to really stop and think about the consequences of the choices that we're making, and is it accessible to all? So we spend the first week really diving into ethical design. After that, we get into the research part. So we look at qualitative research like user interviews, contextual inquiry. We look at quant research, okay? So sending out surveys and analyzing quantitative data. Doing usability studies, research planning, coming up with a research strategy, research goals and research questions, and how to communicate that out to your team and stakeholders. And then how to analyze and synthesize all of the data that's coming back in. How do you know what to do with it? We also teach you how to present all of this stuff, right? If you can't convince people that your research is credible and that your decisions are sound, then all that research doesn't matter anyway. So how do you present in a persuasive manner? So some of these are terms you may have seen, things like rapid prototyping and lean UX. Big emphasis on like sketching and externalizing your thinking. That's really how we draw out the creative part, is by constantly externalizing your ideas, either onto a whiteboard or to sticky notes or to paper or an iPad in some cases. Creating journey maps, wireframes, sitemaps, UX writing and voice and tone is a big part of what we do as well. Good writing is good thinking. UI design, we get deep into color theory, typography, interaction and animation, the difference between Android and Apple guidelines. Again, I said design for the web, data viz, using grids, and all of this, of course, in Figma. So we teach you how to do all of the good stuff in Figma as well. And then product strategy is really about defining the right problem, right? And before you start to solve the problem, right? So the right problem needs to be a problem that the market will pay for. Right? It needs to be a problem that you actually have the technical ability to build as a company. Right? So how do you think about all those variables and factors? And we have these really great frameworks that help you get that done. as well as to bring stakeholders into the room and get them to agree on a direction. I thought I'd show you some cool projects that came out of the last 3 cohorts. This was by Justin S. So his project was a dashboard for a gaming site. I thought he did really excellent work. There's some more of his screenshots. So what he's showing here is how the user interface actually adapts responsively, whether it's on a desktop or a mobile browser. Debbie C did some, what you see here is a prototype that she built. So you can see her navigating in the dashboard here in the middle as she moves throughout the navigation. So I believe she built that in Webflow. And then Milka concentrated mostly on UX and research. So building sitemaps, doing competitive analysis. You can see at the bottom her competitive analysis that she worked on to present to her stakeholders. And then her UX design, so the wireframes that she built, which are lower fidelity approximations of what the website would be to hand off to a UI designer or an interaction designer to make. So yeah, Milka did really great work. Some common objections that you may be thinking of is one, I'm not creative, right? Well, I don't buy that. Again, I go back to the idea that nothing you've done up until this point is wasted. And if anything in this industry, we need people with different backgrounds, okay? The design space is evolving, it's advancing, and we need a diversity and variety of perspectives and experiences to contribute to the conversation and push this industry forward. So if you have not been in a creative quote unquote field, which I disagree with, believe me, selling cars is a creative endeavor and it's a strategic endeavor, and you have to be a fast thinker and a persuasive communicator. So again, I don't buy that what you're working on now isn't creative. It's creative in a different way than maybe defined by some other people, but we need your experiences and your background to push this industry forward. Another objection that we hear, I don't want to code. Well, you're not really going to code in our program. You're going to learn a week roughly of HTML and CSS so that you can better understand what web design is. You better understand the technology that's driving your designs once it's in the browser. So we don't get into JavaScript and we don't get into algorithms and functions and things like that. It's really more just about the structure and skeleton of a web page and how to make stylistic choices to the web page, like layout, typography, color, and manipulating elements on the web. So we teach CSS Flexbox, which allows you to arrange your elements on a grid in a web page. And of course, I can't quit my job, right, is a common objection. Well, of course, we do have the Flex program. Now, one caveat I just want to mention here, and to be honest, you need to think about the type of learner you are. If you are someone who really needs the structure and accountability of working every day, and you need that accountability, the live program is probably going to be better for you, because you do have that expectation, right, that you are in your seat, that you're working, right, and you can bust through that in 15 weeks. But if you're very organized, if you're very good at being self-motivated, showing up several times a week, and working for several hours at a time to get through a project, right? If you're very self-driven and self-motivated, Flex program is a really good fit. But I just wanted to put that out there for you to honestly think about when you're considering whether or not you can do the Flex program or the live program. The live program is typically around 40 to 50 hours a week. We have a big priority on mental health, well-being, and we encourage you to take breaks and everything like that. But again, you're learning a lot in a 15-week program, as you can tell. So the live programs, it's intense. It's intense in a really good way. You will be tired. You will be You'll be overwhelmed at times, but you will be so, so glad you did it. That's the thing that we continue to hear from students so much, is I'm so glad that I put this effort and work into the program. And I've already kind of talked about this, right? If you already know you want to do UX, well, why would you learn all the other things? If you already know you want to do research, why should you learn UI design? Again, I just encourage you to do some light research. Don't take my word for it. Look at what the responsibilities and expectations for what a product designer is. They tend to go very deep into one area, like research, but know enough about all the other areas that they are valuable in a project, no matter where the project is. So again, anything you learn in UX is going to help you be a better researcher. Anything you learn in UI is going to help you be a better UX designer. Okay? It is not skills that are wasted or that you will not use just because you specialize in one area or the other. And then I'll just end with this. This is a student a little while ago who posted this and just said he wanted everyone to know this. He wanted potential students to know this who are considering the program, and current students who are in the program to know to keep pushing at it. He says, I don't have a degree, but I work really hard. Hard work pays off. So he posted this because he just signed his job contract and he had just gotten a job. So these success stories are what keeps us doing what we're doing. It drives the industry forward, and it drives Flatiron forward. So again, if you want to be the one posting this in our Slack channel, before too long, please do continue to think about whether this is the right program for you, and we hope it is. All right, so at that time, I will stop my screen, and let's get into some questions. All right. Are you considering offering in-person part-time courses? I would love to attend in-person night classes, but keep current day job. Yep, that's true. We only have the full-time course for in-person right now. I would say that has been considered for Q2 or Q3 of 2023. So not in the immediate future. Barbara, do I see that right? You're only teaching design of software, not hardware products like step stool pulley. Yeah, that's true. That type of product design for furniture or a can opener, things like that, or in your case, like you said, a step stool, we are not teaching that product design. It is digital product design only. Yep. Although, there have been students who have graduated the program and then moved into like AutoCAD and some of the 3D modeling software, and have put that in their portfolio and, gone on to pursue that as well. But we are only digital product design. Kara, you said, does Flatiron facilitate access to student loans if someone needs to quit a job and focus on the full-time live program? So I will defer to Corey to answer that. So I don't know, Corey, if you're able to type an answer to that. I do know that there are student loans available. On our website, I would encourage you to maybe sign up for a info session with student services, I believe are the ones who help facilitate that. But the short answer is yes, we do facilitate access to student loans. You also asked about the time completion for people who choose the Flex program. Yep, so the average time is going to be about 40 weeks. That's sort of the baseline expectation that we have. There are, if you think of the bell curve, right? The top of the bell curve is going to be 40 weeks. The bottom of the bell curve are 20 weeks for those who, can move through it faster. And the other extreme end of the bell curve is 60 weeks. There are some students who have taken 60 weeks to get through the program. Most fall in between, the 20 and the 60. That's the sweet spot. Great question. No, the pre-work is available for anyone right now. You can go to the website and sign up and go ahead and get started on the prep work. You do not have to commit to the program. You do not have to, I think the only thing you have to do is give us your email to be able to start the prep work. So you can do that now if you're interested in learning more about product design. That's just free. All right. See if you have any other questions. What's the technical overlap between web development and product design? Yeah, that's a really good question. Again, from Kara, or no, sorry, who asked that? Oh, Ashley, thank you. So web dev is going to be someone who is able to, code in JavaScript. I would say is the big difference. They can code in JavaScript, but they also understand the technology stack that drives modern web design or modern web browsers. Okay, so they might learn like SQL to be able to work with databases. They may be learning React, like front-end design frameworks that are based on JavaScript, but they are libraries and frameworks that allow more modern software patterns to work in a browser. So if anyone remembers, even as short a time as like 6, 7, 8 years ago, web browsers could not do as much as they could. Like you have programs now that are really just web browsers wrapped in a, are there native looking apps wrapped in a web browser. So the web browser technology stack runs pretty much everything. As opposed to something that you downloaded on, say, the App Store, right? That's like a native app. If you go to the Google App Store or the Apple App Store on your computer, that's a native app. That's built in a totally separate thing. But if you download an app from the web, it might be that it's actually like being driven by Chrome, right? It's just skinned to look like a native application. So a web developer would kind of understand what it takes to make something like that and would understand how to get data in and data out using frameworks like React and JavaScript, as well as like the HTML and CSS part of it, which is the presentation layer, right? So this is what it looks like, not just how it acts. So you can think about JavaScript as being the behavior, right? So what goes where and when, and HTML is like the skeleton, the structure, it's the words on the page, it's where the images load, and the CSS is really just what it looks like. CSS tells you what color to use and what size font, and CSS has animation, so you can create moving icons and things like that. So you got 3 different layers. You got the skeleton, the structure, HTML, the presentation, what it looks like, the CSS, and the behavior is really the JavaScript. So a web developer would really understand the behavioral part of it, the JavaScript and data layers. All right. Oh, I'm glad I said your name right. Not Kara. Yeah. Oh, Ashley, you had another question. How will persuasion be taught via UI? Do you mean persuasive design? Is that what you meant, Ashley? Well, I'll just answer the question whether or not that's what you meant. It's an interesting question. Persuasive design is, we definitely do get into that in several lectures. We get into it in 2 different ways. We talk about something called dark patterns, which are persuasive design patterns that ethically we want to avoid, right? That we do not recommend that you use for many reasons. Sometimes there's been lawsuits at companies for using bad, dark patterns, which kind of take advantage of like human psychology and behavior to sort of gamify or get them to take actions that are really against their best interest. So yeah, we talk about dark patterns and why you don't want to use them and what they are and how to recognize them, how to fix them. But on the positive end of the thing, there's also behavioral design, or you might say design for behavior change. That's a positive thing. Think about your Fitbit. Think about your Apple Watch. Think about some weight loss apps, although there's some ethical things with those as well. Some dark patterns they use that are not good, as well as some health issues. But anyway, think about positive behavioral change. So we talk about that as well, designing for behavior change. And there's the conversation goes across all of the pieces of the Venn diagram, honestly, Ashley. There's definitely UI pieces to it, right? Like how do we use the right color? How do we use animation? How do we use these different UI visual things to persuade people to do, what's in their best interest. And then there's also the UX part of it, I think. So it's not just the visual composition. Yeah. Oh, persuasion was listed as one of the top soft skills. Yep, that's another type of persuasion. Okay, so that's persuasive presentation. There's a couple of elements to that. Persuasive presentation would be having your information in a format that's appropriate for your audience. So what that might look like is understanding that, let's say you have 900 survey responses. If you just dump that data into Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets and spit out, a pie graph of all of the answers, and then you put it up on the screen and you're like, here's the research, here's the data. No one's going to know what the hell to do with that, right? Number one, a pie graph would be a terrible data visual to use for 900 survey responses, probably. Maybe you don't even need a graph. Maybe you just need text. Maybe you don't need text. Maybe you just need a visual representation of what the research shows. Maybe you need icons along with, a word or a title, right? So in short, there are presentation techniques that are visual, and there are presentation techniques that are more behavioral. Right? How do you speak in a confident and competent manner so that people buy into your words? Things like, 900 survey responses, 75% of respondents said that they prefer product A. Well, why? Right? Getting into the why can often be more persuasive than just saying 70% preferred product A. Like, that's an important data point, obviously, but if you don't understand why, and if you don't talk about why, you're not getting the buy-in of the audience. Even more powerful, tell a story. Tell a story about users who chose product B and why that was a bad fit or why it's a bad choice. Like, find a customer and tell their story. That's what I mean by persuasive presentations. Part-time and full-time, Laurie, do cover all the same information. The curriculum is exactly the same. Yep, you have all the same labs, all the same assessments, all the same lecture recordings. Yeah, you have open study sessions, so you can show up and do study sessions with some peers who are working on the same assessment or the same lab. Instructors usually show up for those so they can ask questions, and you can show up for guest presentations and things like that. You also have access to our Slack channel 24/7 that you're going to be in. So every phase that you're in for the part-time program, you're in a Slack channel with everyone else in that same phase. So students can get a lot of support like that. Every day, our Flex students are asking, hey, could someone look over this lab for me? Or could someone give me feedback? Could someone go through this usability prototype that I built and just make sure that it's working? So there's a lot of community and collaboration that happens in the part-time program through Slack. And we just launched Discord too. So there's a whole there's 12,000 alumni, not all product design obviously, but 12,000 alumni they just put into a Discord channel for community. To what extent does the career involve significant cross-functional communication within a job? Would you recommend product design as a good career for introverts? Wow, that's a really good question. Short answer is absolutely. I worked with a product designer who was, I would call him an extreme introvert. He was one of these designers who, would just kind of sit in silence while you talked, and he would just kind of nod, and then he would turn around to his whiteboard and just quietly start sketching. And he didn't talk much, but through that interaction of externalizing his ideas on the whiteboard, like he used the medium a lot of sketching his ideas rather than words. And it was super powerful. To this day, his name's Kevin Simon. He works for Oracle. My favorite designer to have ever worked with. And he did not like to do presentations. He did not like to be the one talking in the room. He was always the last to speak up at the table. But whenever he spoke, like, you listened, right? I will say now, he's a good friend of mine. I will say now he's gotten more into research. He used to avoid research because he didn't want to like interact face to face with customers. It just took time for him to get comfortable feeling like he could be a good user interviewer. And I think if I remember when I spoke with him, what mattered the most was when he understood that doing good user interviews is more about you being quiet than it is about you speaking. Even more than asking good questions. It's more about you being quiet and giving space so that the participant understands that they can think about their answers and they can think in paragraphs, not just sentences, right? So yes, I would recommend it if you're an introvert, for sure. Cross-functional communication within a job. Here's what I'll tell you about that. Due to modern software like Figma and Webflow, so much more emphasis is put on good documentation. So in Figma, what is really powerful about that is I always work with software engineers and developers in Figma. They are in my design file. They're making comments on it. Figma actually allows you to export the code for your components. So it's really powerful for software engineers as well to scaffold like design systems and things like that. So I would say more than anything, good cross-functional communication is more about being a good writer than it is about being a great speaker or presenter. Yeah, I stand behind that. Yeah, being a good writer. That's something I had to learn over many years to be a better writer. I thought it was all about like speaking and being, a communicator and like getting everybody to listen and things. If you can learn to be a good writer and document your work and your thinking, especially for modern product development, I think that's really important. Awesome. That's all the questions that I see. Nope, there's one more. Curtis. Hey, Curtis, I haven't heard from you yet. Any pointers on creating a portfolio website? It's not really talked about from your experience. Yes. We have a whole week dedicated just to show you how to create a case study. Like not even the portfolio, but how do you create a case study that will hook a hiring manager, right? That goes into the right level of detail where the hiring manager or whoever's reading your case study in your portfolio, they can get the details they want, but they can also skim, right? How do you present your work and your information in a way that is good for portfolios? Yeah, I would say if you're creating a portfolio, there's a sweet spot in terms of the number of projects that you put on there. I would say the minimum number you want to put is 3. Any less than 3 and it feels incomplete or like you don't care about your portfolio, right? So minimum of 3 projects. I would say ideally you've got anywhere from 4 to 6. Again, in the bell curve, I think that's probably the really good sweet spot for number of projects because it's more interesting. It shows that you have a breadth of not just experience, but like ideas, right? But I also think like too many projects is also overwhelming and it shows you can't prioritize, what you want to put on there. So you're just like dumping everything together. So yeah, I'd say, 4 to 6 projects, 3 to 6 maybe is probably your sweet spot. Have at least one project that's like super meaty. And what I mean by meaty is it goes into considerable depth about like your process, your research, what you did, what you found, and what you did about it, and then how users responded or like the problem it solved. Right? Like you don't need every single project to be that. It doesn't have to have that much meat to it. Apologies to the vegetarians in the room. But you want people to be able to really dig into at least one of your projects. The rest of them can be, like shorter or medium length. And the reason for that is because when you're coming in to do design presentations for hiring panels or interviews, you don't want to present the same case study that's already on your website. You want to be able to like hold something back so that you can show that live. And that would be one of your shorter projects, right? That you only put a little bit on the portfolio about. Then when you go in, you've got something like new to show them. So yeah. Also, just use unless you're going for a role or a job that's like you're going to be doing some web development or working on our website code base or something. Like there's so many good off the shelf portfolio builders. I know there's like Wix, and Webflow is a really good one. There's a bunch of them. I mean, even Squarespace nowadays, like, it's fine. It really is not about what platform you use. Yes, we do work with companies to help students find jobs and internships, Laurie. Absolutely. Yep, we've got a lot of relationships with those companies. Negative aspects of being a product designer. Yeah, okay. Negative aspects, you have to deal with ambiguity a lot. Because solutions are usually not apparent. On top of that, the problem that you're working on may not be that well defined, meaning it may not be quite the right problem. You might be solving something that doesn't really need to be solved. So product designers need to be able to ask let me put it this way. Some of the best product designers I know are just skeptics by nature. Like they're always wondering, I'm this way. I'm always like, but could it be better? So, right, like, and why are we doing this again? And who are we doing it for? So I think that, I suppose the negative framing is to say skeptic. The positive framing is to say curious. So if you're just curious about how things work and why they are the way they are, if you care about why things are the way they are, like, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because some businesses and some stakeholders don't want you to really dig into why. Some jobs or some businesses just want to say, design a thing and make it work like this, and you kind of make it look this way, or you do your design thing. Let us worry about whether it's the right thing. It depends on the organization. So this is where, if you're really curious about like product strategy and the research part of it, you're going to be someone who asks why a lot. And the why, the answer to why, may not always line up with the problem that you've been given to solve. So how to navigate and negotiate that can be an interesting thing, whether you're working in-house at a company or whether you are working for like an agency with a client, right? Like the client pays the bills. They said they want it built. You're like, yeah, but if we build it, they're going to be unhappy. There's methods that we have to deal with those things, like stakeholder alignment. So we do talk about that and teach why getting stakeholder buy-in is super important. even for like, younger designers, junior or associate designers, to be able to like talk to stakeholders is really crucial, because that way you're not wasting time, right? You're getting buy-in before you start doing things. So I think ambiguity can be a negative thing. Some people get really stressed by ambiguity. It doesn't mean product design isn't right for you, but it may mean that you need to be ready to meditate a lot. No, I'm kidding. You may need to be ready to just cope with not being given the resources sometimes to like do the research you want to do. I would say in a lot of companies, like, research is only now started to become a big part of product design process, or of product process in general. Forget design, right? Like, I think historically companies have not really understood what research is and how powerful it is, and we're just kind of now crossing the bridge with a lot of companies. And what you see, honestly, is that it's a competitive edge. That's why we place a big emphasis on research in product design, because it is a competitive edge, and companies are starting to really understand that now. To be able to do that. I don't know if that really answered your question, but yeah, ambiguity is a big one. Good question. Okay, I think that's all the questions that I see so far. You are so more than welcome to follow up with me, any of you, via email or Twitter or whatever. My DMs are open, just at Joshua Charles, joshua.robinson@flatironschool.com. Happy to reach out, happy to talk with you further about any more of these questions. If you want to set up a one-on-one meeting, I'm just excited about all the different people and experiences and backgrounds that are coming into our program. So again, thank you all for being here. The recording is going to be sent out to you in email in, I believe, 2 or 3 days. So you should see that pop into your email inbox. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out and contact us or set up a session with our student services team. Thank you all so much. It's been really a pleasure to spend time with you and asking great questions. So hope you all have a really good night.